Two souls destined to find each other will always share one unmistakable sign. Most people never notice it until it is already unfolding around them. They are too busy looking for something loud, something obvious, something that announces itself with certainty. But the deepest truths rarely arrive that way. They come quietly. They come in the pause between heartbeats. They come in the moment you least expect, when your guard is down and your heart is finally open enough to receive what it has been waiting for all along. It never begins perfectly. It never starts with everything falling into place. More often, it begins with uncertainty, with longing, with moments that feel beautiful and painful at once. Because the deepest connections are never handed to you without a test first. Life does not simply place two people together and call it done. It watches, it waits, it introduces friction, distance, and doubt, not to break what is real, but to prove that it cannot be broken. You meet this person and something quietly shifts, not loudly, not dramatically, just a wordless knowing, a feeling unlike anything you have experienced before. You cannot name it immediately. You try to explain it to someone and the words feel insufficient, because what you are feeling is not just attraction, it is recognition. A deep cellular sense that you have somehow known this person before, in another chapter of life, in another version of yourself. And then, almost without warning, life pulls you apart. One retreats. The other is left wondering why everything suddenly feels so hollow. The timing looks wrong. Circumstances stack between you like walls no one asked for. Obligations arise. Misunderstandings form. Fear creeps in and convinces one of you to step back before the connection can grow into something that cannot be undone. You watch it happen and you feel powerless. You wonder if you imagined the whole thing. You question your own instincts and tell yourself that perhaps it was never as real as it felt. Yet here is what changes everything. If two people are genuinely meant for each other, they cannot fully walk away. Across any distance, across any stretch of silence, something always draws them back. In daydreams, in idle evenings, in the middle of ordinary moments when life is neither exciting nor difficult, just quiet. In those quiet spaces, they appear, without invitation, without effort. Simply there, the way they have always been there, somewhere just beneath the surface of everything else. You convince yourself you have moved on. You fill your days with routines, with new faces, with deliberate distractions. You rearrange your life around the absence and tell yourself that it is healing. And perhaps it is in some ways. But then, in the stillness in the early morning before the world wakes, or in the last few minutes before sleep finally takes you, something rises. A name, a melody that played once during a moment you shared, a memory so specific and so vivid that it feels less like remembering and more like being pulled back in time. And it surfaces again, the way it always does. That is not random. That is something far deeper than coincidence. Because these connections do not shatter under pressure. They bend. They stretch across years and miles and heartbreaks. They go silent for long stretches without dying. They survive the very things that would destroy a love built on something lesser. And most people, when they experience this, assume it means something is wrong with them. They assume they are holding on too tightly. They assume they need to try harder to forget. But what if the inability to forget is not a flaw? What if it is information? What if it is the heart knowing something the mind has not yet accepted? Here is what life is actually doing during all that distance. It is not ending the story. It is building the people inside it. Every month of separation, every painful lesson learned alone, every moment of growth that happens in solitude, all of it is preparation. Life is not cruel when it keeps two people apart for a time. Life is patient. It understands that love, real love, requires two people who are ready, not just drawn to each other, ready for each other. Each of them must grow on their own first, heal what was broken long before the other person ever entered the picture, unlearn the patterns that were making them difficult to love, and difficult to be loved. Let go of the wounds they were carrying into every interaction, wounds that had nothing to do with each other, but would have poisoned everything between them if left unaddressed. Become worthy of the love that is waiting, not because they were ever undeserving, but because love this deep requires a foundation that only time and honest self-work can build. Because what truly binds two souls like this is not chemistry alone. Chemistry is the spark. Anyone can feel a spark. What sustains something real is the slow, patient work of becoming healed, becoming honest, becoming the kind of person who can hold space for another without losing themselves in the process. That is what the distance is building. That is what the silence is teaching, not absence, architecture. And even through all of that silence, they still feel each other. You sit alone in a room and something stirs, a warmth with no obvious source, a sense of being thought of from somewhere far away. A song begins playing, and you are suddenly somewhere else entirely, standing in a memory so clear it almost hurts. You catch yourself wondering whether they are thinking of you too, in this same moment, perhaps sitting in their own silence, and feeling that same inexplicable pull. That bond does not require physical closeness to remain real. It does not need conversation or confirmation to stay alive. It simply exists, the way gravity exists, invisibly, consistently, regardless of whether anyone is paying attention to it. There will be moments when you doubt all of it, moments when the silence feels like rejection instead of preparation, moments when you watch other people moving through love that looks easier, love that does not ask this much of them, and you wonder why yours has to be so complicated. Let those moments pass, because what looks complicated from the inside is often simply deeper than anything built for convenience. Easy things rarely change people, but the love that asks everything of you, that love, leaves a mark that never fully fades. Then, when the moment is finally right, they find their way back, not through desperate effort, not by force or by chasing or by carefully engineering a reunion, quietly, naturally. The way seasons return, the way the tide does not have to be coaxed back toward the shore, as though something greater than either of them simply decided the time had come, and all the pieces that had been drifting slowly apart began, just as slowly, to drift back together. And when they meet again in that place, everything feels different. Not unfamiliar, the recognition is still there, still instant, but steadier, calmer, more honest. The electricity has not disappeared, but it is no longer edged with anxiety. There is peace in it now. There is room, because both of them have done the work. Both of them have arrived with open hands instead of clenched fists. Both of them are finally ready, not just to feel something, but to build something. That is the whole difference. Ordinary love fades when things get hard, when life stops being romantic and starts being real, when two people discover that wanting each other is not the same as being prepared for each other. But love that is genuinely meant to last does not flinch at difficulty. It absorbs it. It metabolizes it into something stronger. It always finds its way back because it was never truly gone, only waiting. So if someone has settled permanently into a corner of your heart, if no amount of time or distance or deliberate forgetting has managed to erase them, trust what that is telling you. Do not force the outcome. Do not collapse the story into a timeline that feels comfortable or logical. The right love does not need to be chased, managed, or convinced into existence. It simply keeps finding you, across seasons, across silence, across every version of yourself you pass through on the way to the one who is finally ready to receive it. Some love stories are not built in a single chapter. They unfold slowly, across interruptions and returns, across all the growing that had to happen first. And the ones that truly last are almost always the ones that were tested earliest, most honestly, and most deeply. If this resonated with something you have been carrying, hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to Psychology Wisdom, because every week, we go deeper into the truths that most people feel but very few ever find the words for. You belong here.